May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be always acceptable to you, O God, our strength and our salvation. Amen. Please be seated. It always seems to me that the Maundy Thursday Gospel ends far too soon. It focuses our attention solely on the washing of the feet, divorcing Jesus' example of loving service from the denial and betrayal that immediately follow. Yet it is precisely the realities of denial and betrayal that serve to explicate the particular kind of love about which Jesus is trying to teach us. A love that does not depend upon the goodness of its recipients. A love that cares for others regardless of their response. A love that is more than just a feeling. A love called agape. Indeed, immediately following the passage that Karen read, Jesus goes on to predict both Judas's betrayal and Peter's denial, while still sitting around the dinner table with his disciples. Hear these words from John's Gospel, spoken as the supper was concluding. Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, "Very truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me." His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which one of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned to this disciple and said, "Ask him which one he means." Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Then, dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, "What you are about to do, do quickly." John's portrayal of Jesus is so steely and resolute, isn't it? It's hard to imagine Jesus being so dispassionate about his friend betraying him so profoundly. It's difficult to say how much of this portrayal is editorial, and it's almost impossible to excavate down to what we might call Jesus' real feelings. But whatever Jesus might have been feeling deep down, he does not get angry or accusatory or vengeful. Somehow Jesus keeps his peace, even in the face of such betrayal. If this were happening to any of us, we might want to shout, "How could you do this to me? After all I've done for you, have you just been pretending to be my friend all along? Didn't any of this mean anything to you? Do you know how badly this is going to turn out for me?" But Jesus doesn't say any of those things. And there's no suggestion in the text that he was thinking them either. Indeed, even at a moment like this, Jesus is not only nonviolent in his actions, but also nonviolent in his speech. The intensity of his compassion seems even to diffuse and defang the arising of any spiteful thoughts. But can it really last? Will Jesus really be able to keep his peace with Peter too? Or will he crack under the strain of yet further betrayal? We rejoin the gospel scene as Jesus is telling the disciples that he will only be with them for a little while longer. "Where I am going, you cannot come." Simon Peter asked him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "Where I am going, you cannot follow now, but you will follow later." Peter asked, "Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." And Jesus answered, "Will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." Jesus' question of Peter could be read in so many different tones of voice, couldn't it? I can imagine an angrily derisive tone. I can also imagine a bewilderedly exasperated tone. But I always seem to come back to an incredulously compassionate tone, like a parent speaking to their poorly behaved but unrepentantly adorable child. trying to be a little stern while still clearly seeing their child's innate beauty and lovability. It's with this last tone of voice that I can most easily imagine Jesus speaking to Peter. Jesus somehow manages to keep his peace. He knows Peter is scared. He knows that this is all too much. He knows that he might have to go through it all alone. After Jesus' predictions of betrayal and denial, then, there's still one more gospel incident that we need to revisit on Maundy Thursday. It's the poignant scene of Jesus' arrest. And it's here that we can most clearly see the depths of Jesus' commitment to nonviolence, to radical peaceableness. Let's recall what transpired that night in the garden and how Jesus kept his peace, even as he was being given into the hands of soldiers. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said. And Judas the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put away your sword. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Put your sword away, dear Peter. There will be no violence here, at least not from us. For I will drink from the cup my Father has given me. Not the cup that Judas is giving me, not the cup that you will give me, Peter, but the cup that God has given me, which is to somehow love all of you with the heartbreaking intensity of God's own love, to somehow bear the enormity of God's own love in this frail human frame. It is at once so heavy and so light, so bitter and so sweet. This love is everything. So I cannot abandon it nor violate it. I must go where love takes me. Which of course was to the cross, to the hard wood of the cross, on which his arms would be stretched wide to embrace us all. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? Sorrow and love flow together so poignantly throughout all of the final moments of Jesus' life. Flow together like mighty rivers to cleanse our feet, to bathe our hearts, to wash our tearful faces. Even from the cross, Jesus will minister to us, just as he ministers to us tonight, with water and towel, with bread and wine, with body and blood. May it be so.